Okay guys, good morning. I've got a new update for you, 0.8.2. It got around 300 new inputs supported. In my Discord I said it's going to be 150 or something, but I went overboard, added most of the inputs that are left in the SDK of the game that can be used with SimConnect. So most of the inputs are supported. That means everything that is a button, toggle, rudder, trim. The only things that aren't supported yet are the sets. So that means that I have two already in as a demonstration. You can set the COM frequency and the transponder. So you can pass it a variable and the game will set it on that variable as well. And all the other ones aren't working yet because they require a bit more work than the normal buttons. So I wanted to get those buttons out of the way, and I can now focus on setting the values and adding the controls, because that's the next step, adding controls and adding the set values. So let's just dive right in. I'm going to read a simple test setup today. Most importantly, I want you guys to just start using it, see how it works, see how you like it, and if you want to keep updated, don't forget to subscribe down below. Let's just dive right in. So my setup today is pretty basic. I've got two buttons hooked up. Wiring this up, really easy. One goes to ground, one goes to the, I've got this hooked up to the 28 and 29 because this is an Arduino Mega. You can use a Uno, Mega, Leonardo, everything that has serial communication capabilities, even the STM32, Teensy, whatever. As long as it can talk over the serial line at 115200, you're able to use this connector and enjoy the latest update. Now, what we're gonna demonstrate is that if we press the button, something happens, pretty straightforward. And if I press the black button, it changes what this button does. So that's all it is. Let's just do a quick view of the code, shall we? So how we're gonna code this up. There really are a few lines. We only need to know, let's say, #define. We're gonna define where the button is hooked up to. So we know 28. Let's call this button A. And we're going to define where the other button is hooked up to, which is button B, hooked up to 29. Pretty straightforward. Now in the setup, we need a bit of basic. So serial.begin 115200. We need to include the bits and droids library. So #include smaller than sign bits and droids flight connector.h, which can be found from going to tools, manage libraries. Here it comes. And if you search for the bits and droids flight connector, bits and droids, here we go. Here we go. Bits and droids flight sim library 0.8.0. Later today this will be 0.2. So once we've got it included, we need to create an object called bits and droids flight connector, which we're going to call connector, and it is a mega, so we're going to say false. This is just, if it's a Leonardo per micro, you could put this to true. Now in the loop, the only thing we need to do, a serial I've got, pin mode, we say that button A is input, all capitals, pull up. This tells us that it's going to use the internal pull-up resistors. And we do the same for button B. Button B is going to be an input underscore pull up. And this is just the easiest way to read a button. You could multiplex or something to get more buttons on one device. You could use a shift register. Shift register, it does the multiplexing. You could create a matrix and read that out, but this is just the most easy form. So I'm going to say if button digital read, so we're going to read the pin. Which pin of the button A? And if it's low, so if it's pressed, we want to do something. Now it's always smart to add a little delay, or else if we're going to press the button, you aren't going to release it in like 1 second, right? There's always a time that you press the button and that you release the button. The time in between pressing and releasing will all be through how many times the loop block is executed, so how fast the processor is. So if we add a delay, we make sure that if we press it, we still have time to release it without firing the command 3000 times or 200 times. I don't know how many, but... So the only thing that's left is to do serial.print line connector dot. Now, I'm gonna grab the release nodes. We've got pitted heat, we got magnetos, we got anti-ice, we got the fuel valve, we got the fuel selector, we got the crossfeed elevator, spoilers, trim, cowl flaps, fuel pump, primer, feather, afterburner, starter, APU, signs, lights, gear, alternator, ATC, EGT, GPS, G1000 and the miscellaneous. Now the G1000 and the GPS are in there because they are in the documentation of the flight sim. The only downside is that Asobo itself hasn't bound these buttons to the airplane itself yet. So that's waiting till they fix that in their updates. Now you might think to yourself, but others have already found ways to fix this. And that's true because they inject the game with a certain file and that way they can control the game. I first wanted to focus on getting the base SimConnect SDK functionalities in before I shifted my focus on things like that. So the G1000 and the GPS are in there. They are inoperable right now. I just wanted to get this over with so I wouldn't have to come back to this point later on. So don't be fooled when you see these. I will also put this in for you to be rather clear so that you can get confused. A to C menu, alternators, gears, lights, all in all quite a lot. Like we said, we want to just pick one. So what are we going to do? Send elevator trim down? I don't know. I haven't tested this, so this is my first rodeo with you guys. And this is it. The only thing we do is connector dot, well, we picked what we wanted, send elevator trim down, and we said print that on our serial line. So that's it. You must include the closing brackets at the end. Let's see if I can zoom in. Yeah, this part. And this is already all that's needed to send the button. Now, what if you came back to this and were like, I'm not quite sure about this one. I want something else. Something that I know. Okay, let's do a structural de-ice. I'm gonna grab the sense toggle structural de-ice. This is a toggle. So if you press it, it goes on or off depending on the current state. With some buttons, they've included an on-off state, and with some buttons, they just included a toggle. I don't know why and what the difference is. But I know what the difference is, but not why they chose to implement some buttons either way. So we got this running. The only thing that's left is just to... Oh, I've got a bracket somewhere, or braces, or a comma. Here we go. I've got the closing line. Let's just... Wait, you know what? I'm gonna do button B as well, so just so you get a clear view. If button A is pressed, we do this. Well, if button B is pressed, we're gonna do... magneto increase. Why not? Here we go. I think it has magnetos, right? Yeah, it should be. So we just replace the send toggle structural de-ice with send magneto increase. Upload it again. Success. Structural de-ice. I'm not quite sure if it's in the Cessna. I know that it's in the this one, Beechcraft Baron G58. I almost can't pronounce it properly. Amsterdam, just to keep things, you know. Why change the winning team? Okay, so I've loaded up the connector, which can be downloaded from the link in the description down below, or https://www.bitsandroids.com/downloads. Here we go. The only thing you need to do is go to this is the output tab, so where you can receive data from the game. This is where you can send data. So you select the COM port where your Arduino is hooked up to. So in my case, that's COM port 6. I just press start. Now, it's possible to add multiple Arduinos. You just have to press the plus button, a new line will appear, and you can select another device on another COM port, so you can use multiple Arduinos to input whatever you'd like. You know what? I'm going to show you that I've got my throttle hooked up. So I'm just gonna do it like this. My throttle is hooked up and my COM6, which is the Arduino Mega. So let's see. Here we go. See, that is working. This is working as well. Perfect. Now, structural DIs should be surface. I'm not quite sure actually. These are the magnetos, so that is working. See? Apparently I've got it hooked up to the command that controls all magnetos. There's also the option to select which one you want specifically, so you can create a device that matches each magneto individually. Now, structural DIs, surface auto, see, it's a toggle, so I can just press it, it goes on and off. And this makes it really easy. It doesn't matter if the keybinds change in game. So normally you would have to go in the control menu when you use the joystick library or something. You have to bind it. An issue could arise when you have multiple Arduinos, because then you have, it would say Arduino Leonardo. Would always screw things up for me. Right now, I think this is the most easy approach to handle an input. It is only contained to Microsoft Flight Sim 2020, however, so that's something to keep in mind. I plan on supporting the other sims later on, but I just want to make sure that first I want to get this in a decent enough level. Toggle fuel valve all, why not? Let's just change it. And that's the beauty of it. Like, I can just toggle structural DIs. Well, it isn't snowing right now, it isn't cold. Here, I think, perhaps it is, I don't know. Quick stop. Toggle fuel valve, let's do something with trim, I don't know. Aileron trim, rudder trim. I don't know which one is which, to be quite honest. Elevator trim, up, down. I'm gonna do elevator trim down. Why not? Here we go, upload. I'm gonna hit run again, load up the game. Here we see, this one is the elevator trim. Pitch trim. I don't know what the elevator trim is. Oh wait, this one is the elevator. Look, it's slowly, but and you can. I've got it bound to a button, but if you got rotary encoder hooked up, you can just, you know, the code that says it goes up or it goes down. The only thing that you need to put in that block is a serial print line, and include what you want to print. So let's say trim up or trim down, and you can use that to send a trim command directly to the game and without any interference. I think even with a rotary encoder, it works like a charm. Let's see, what did I bound to this one? Oh, I remember, something with the fuel shutoff valve, isn't it? But it isn't a fuel selector, because that's something else. And now comes the point where, you know, you guys probably have way more experience than me, because I don't know what I did. The engine's off, so I guess something happens. Right? Let's do it like this. Did I do that with the button? Yeah, I'm doing something. See, something happens. There is no flow, so it actually is working. I wasn't sure. You know, here you go. I'm new to this as well. Let's see. Like I said, ATC. I don't know if it works. We're gonna find out. Send ATC. Send ATC. And what else do we want to do? We want to send ATC menu 1. Because we want to tell the little boy that we are gonna take off. I hope. Doesn't matter. Here we go. Stop. Okay, we're gonna hit start. And that's the only thing you need. You need to press start. Here we go. Okay, this is working. So this button is pressing the 1. The ATC itself, I'm not quite sure what it does. It's in the menus, but I could just set ATC menu 2. You know what? Hook up a keypad. Make that your ATC menu input. And you got that out of the way. You don't need every time go to the keyboard. The possibilities are quite endless. I hope that she's gonna shut up. No, she isn't, right? I didn't even know that this worked, but you can decrease the COM audio level. Perfect. GPS G1000, like I mentioned, doesn't work. And by the way, the reason you see these numbers at the end is because this is just the serial command that gets sent. So this is the only thing this does is replace this text with the number 675. Now, if you are constrained on size or anything, you could even just do this 675 and here we go. Get rid of this one. 676. The only reason I put the other version in like this is that I'm in one look, I'm able to see what this does. It does sense, seatbelt, alert, switch, toggle, right? If I just have the 675, I need to add an extra step where I go to the documentation. I'd have to go through the list to see where the 675 is, and then I know what the corresponding action is. Now, in some cases, some values are added in the list later than others. So here we have a jump from 563 to 701. So looking for the actual value can sometimes be a bit of a more difficult task. But to accommodate for that, you can use the library. It's just, you get the option, it's not a necessity. Upload the code, stop the connector. And did I already mention that CPU usage is back at 0%? I fixed this update. The main reason was that the reading of the COM ports happened at a rate of multiple times per millisecond. So it would go at totally bonkers scanning your COM ports. I hope this will also give me a better starting point to fix that we can use one Arduino for inputs and outputs. That's something that's coming up. For now, we got it working like this. No CPU load whatsoever and still very responsive. See if they don't work, then let me know in the comments, hit me up on Discord or send me an email. It's all up on the website in the description below as well. I will push these release notes out today with the video, so you can just read up on what you need and not what I want you to use, because I only want you to use what you need. The only thing, there are small slight changes, and that's when it comes to the inputs. Now, currently we need some extra values and we have an extra function. We have the mixture input handling. Before this, the mixture was mixed together with the inputs. I've taken them apart because normally you don't press the mixture and throttle at the same time, right? So you do either one, and that's saves as data that goes over the line. Okay, so save as data that goes over the line. If we could just split them apart. If you don't use the mixture, it shouldn't be in there. Some people only use the throttles, so now you've got that possibility to just use the inputs and mixture if desired. So we've got a simple input handling. Simple input handling takes the pin at which your potentiometer is connected. In my case, that's A2 on the board. So this is just the address of the pin, which is located on the board as well. So it will say A2, depends on where you plug it in. The propeller input handling or the props input handling requires an A1 and A1. So you can hook up to two propeller handles. If you want them to be the same one, just do A1, A1. If you want a different one, you could A1, A3, whatever. It's up to you. Up to 2 engines. I couldn't find a plane currently with 4 engines that could be controlled by a propeller. So the mixture, same deal. You can assign 2 handles. In my case, I've only got 1 handle on my throttle box. So I assigned it the A0, A0. Now then you need a minimum value, a maximum value, and true. So what this does is, in the case that you have a potentiometer that can't reach its full potential or can't go back to 0 completely because it gets blocked by something or whatever, you installed it in your box, and you can't reach 0, you could change this to 10, and then it will change the percentage based on a range of 10 to 1023. So that's the reason I have a minimum value in now. So you have minimum value 0, maximum value 1023. Might differ if you use a different board, but in most Arduinos it's going to be 1023. And we need a true or false statement. Now this true or false statement is telling you, do I need to reverse the percentages? So if I put my potentiometer in backwards, when I open it, I want it to be closed. And if I close it, I want it to be open. So that way you can flip the logic behind it without having to reinstall the potentiometer in your device itself. Because in my case, the rotary linear potentiometers have their cables in the back, and it's easier for me to route them to the Arduino when it's in the back. And that is why I've chosen with this way, that we can just software flip it around without having to go in and change the entire design, because that would be option B of the control box. So that is something that has changed. It's not drastically. If you use the old version and you don't update, nothing is going to change for you. If you update, this is something that you will encounter. So we still also have the advanced input handling. And with this, you could assign up to 4 potentiometers for 4 engines. So A2, A2, A2. In my case, this would mean that one stick would control all engines. I could change this to A1, 2, 3, 4. Then I could change things up to 4 sticks. So yeah, that's something that you're now able to do. It's a bit more, gives you a bit more freedom on your designing part, and the software can handle the rest. I think the debouncing on this is actually quite on par. It's a bit like, it isn't responsive like a rocket. It makes it a little bit sluggisher, but not in a noticeable way that I'm like, I'm really bothered by it. If I would slam the throttle in, even the game would slow it down, because if we would open it completely, it depends on the plane though. This one is quite responsive. This Cessna itself is actually a bit slower on the input, but this one actually works pretty darn fine. And it will never go back to 0 if it's at 100, like sometimes happens when you use the joystick library with an axis. So this is just, yeah, I think a bit more better on the throttle mixture and the propeller. I'm gonna be working on ways to actually use it as a joystick as well. So that's coming up. Lots is coming up. If you want to keep updated, please subscribe down below. If you like this update, leave a like as well. Helps me out. And I hope you just have fun. Start flying. Start experimenting. I hope you don't crash your plane because something I wrote. If you did, I'm gonna pay for your insurance of the digital airplane or something. I don't know. Have fun. See you later.